Hey, so you're thinking about moving to Overland Park, Kansas. Well, hey, in this video, we're gonna go over some pros and cons to living in Overland Park, Kansas. So stick around because we're gonna get after it right now. So you're thinking about moving to Overland Park, Kansas. Well, in this video, we're gonna go over some pros and cons to living in Overland Park, Kansas. I've been a resident of the Kansas City area, born and raised here, lived here over 40 years to give away my age. So I have a lot of perspective. My business partner, Max, and I, and our team have been helping families move in the Kansas City area for over 20 years. We get calls and texts and emails from folks just like you every single day, and we absolutely love it. And we're excited to share with you our perspective on the different parts of Kansas City. And today we're gonna talk about some pros and cons of moving and living in Overland Park. I think I kind of bring a unique perspective. My business partner, like I said, Max, he moved out to the East Coast to New York and spent some time out there until he had kids and decided he wanted to come back. And I went on a little hiatus, a little adventure move where I took my family out to the West Coast and spent a few years out there before coming back to finish raising my kids. And we went out there when my kids were in elementary school and middle school, and then came back before high school started. So I've got a good idea, at least if you're in my boat with a couple little kids and married and in the mid 40s and you're wanting to move into this area. It's kind of the things that a lot of people are looking for that kind of fit that demographic. So I'm going to start with that. If you're a single or a young couple and you don't have kids and you're looking to move into the area too, I'll touch on that and some other good points, but let's just dig in, shall we? All right, so first I want to talk about the schools. I know when we moved away, the first thing that my wife was concerned with was schools, right? So usually if you're moving to a place that has A+ schools, you're gonna end up in a little bit higher priced property with a little bit higher priced property taxes, because a lot of those property taxes are going to pay for that A+ school, right? So you already expect that, and that's exactly the same situation here. Overland Park has the Blue Valley School District, which is A+ schools. There is Blue Valley North, there's like a Northwest, there's an East, there's a South, lots of Blue Valley schools. It's one of the major employers in Overland Park and Johnson County. Along with the public schools, if you're looking at private schools, I know when we moved away, we looked at private and public. There's still some very prestigious private schools here too that have top ratings. Pembroke, there's a couple others. We can send you a list of that if you want more information, but I'm happy to talk through that with you if that's important to you. Just to run through some of these stats real quick on the school district, because I know that is important to a lot of people. It's got a very culturally diverse, so I'm gonna go through the ethnicity real quick. We've got 68% are white Caucasian, 15% Asian, 6% Hispanic, multiracial 5%, African American 3%, and American Indian 0.34, and 0.07 Hawaiian. So we've got just a fraction of a Hawaiian person. Interesting stat there. But so Blue Valley, it's kind of interesting. They boast having over 90 different home languages in their student base. So that's pretty incredible. So a lot of people appreciate just, it's kind of a melting pot, right? We're right here in the Midwest, just the amount of diversity that you'll find in the Blue Valley School District. It's really pretty cool. All right, so enrollment in 2022 was, I don't have the 23 stats yet, K through 12, 21,000, and EC through 12, 22,000. The staff, over 73% of the staff has a master's degree or higher, so that's kind of cool, kind of important. And just to post some other numbers about the demographics of the homeowners in the Blue Valley School District is the median age is 42.1 years old. The median house point for those folks that have kids attending is $476,000, and the average household income for the folks that live and attend those schools is $116,000. Now, if you are a teacher, then this school district also offers a great employment opportunity, along with several other local businesses. So if that's kind of your thing, you don't even really aren't gonna have to be leaving Overland Park, or OP as the locals say very often. All right, number 2 on the list is food and entertainment. Now this is more what I was concerned with when I was looking for a location. I knew she had the schools taken care of, so I didn't have to really think about that. So I just worried about the fun. So plenty of fun things to do. OP is probably the hot spot in the Kansas City area for local restaurants, fine dining, shopping, and everything just located right there. Golf courses, all kinds of stuff. So There's over 83 parks. We've talked about this in our neighborhood vlog. Check that out. Over 83 parks. We got 75 square miles of shopping and houses, and there is golf courses, there's parks, there's a botanical garden, we've got museums, we've got the chicken and pickle, which is fun to get a little exercise and some food, rivers and streams, and all kinds of outdoor activities, bikes, walking trails, all that fun stuff that you'd kind of expect. All right, there's also that little downtown. I've talked about it in the vlog in the north part of Overland Park, kind of the old downtown, where you're more of grids around the neighborhood. And that's gonna have more of your boutique, your small little restaurants. You go walking down the downtown street, kind of like that old Main Street feel, right there on Santa Fe. You'll see a clock tower and the Overland Park water tower. It just has that old historic charm of an older downtown with lots of things to do right there, bars and restaurants and barbecue and a lot of ethnic foods too. You've got Ethiopian, Greek, some local stuff like the peanuts and barbecue, but just a very diverse population and a very diverse cultural restaurant cuisine experience. So you're gonna be able to find everything. You got your Whole Foods, and it's really top notch as compared to everywhere else in the city. So number 3, that kind of rolled right into an attractive downtown. That's number 3 on my list. I already talked a little bit about that. It is nice and quaint. There's also a lot of activities that are kind of focused there. There is the farmer's market, where they will bring in all kinds of local grown foods, little pop-up shops and handcrafted goods that are made by the locals, and all the things you expect to find at kind of a farmer's market. Carnivals, there's fairs, there's parades, just all, anytime you can come up with a reason to get together down there, there's something going on. So lots of activity. So it's attractive. So that's number 3 on my list. Number 4 is getting places. It's really pretty easy. Even though there's a lot of traffic, it's a pretty busy place. It's pretty easy to get to places. The streets are done really well. You pay a little more for taxes and you pay a little more for this and that, but that all goes to kind of improve the surrounding area, make everything flow. They put 69 highway that runs right up through the middle of Overland Park, so that allows you to get off at different points, whether you're traveling north or south through the city. It really allows you to travel and get around pretty easily. So that's why I have that number 3. It's also really close to downtown if you're going into downtown to work, or if you happen to work in one of the businesses that's located within Overland Park, then that's even better, right? Less further to go. We've got T-Mobile's one of the major employers there. We've got Black & Veatch, which is an engineering firm. The school districts I've mentioned, Blue Valley's a major employer, so if you're a teacher. And then we've got some hospital systems too. So we do have a lot of nurses that live in the area, and doctors tend to like to live on the Kansas side for various reasons. So there's a lot of that going around too. So if you're a nurse, or you're a teacher, or an engineer, or a T-Mobile guy, then it's really a good spot, because there's really no reason that you have to leave the neighborhood, you know what I'm saying? All right, number 5 on my list, property values. So I have been a realtor now for over 20 years, so I kind of lived through that 2008 mess that we all probably experienced. And Overland Park really didn't take it. First of all, here in the Midwest, we didn't have the huge appreciation cycles like they had out on the East Coast and the West Coast. That when those crashed and tanked, there was a lot of devastation and huge, big number of losses, right? But here in the Midwest, we were just kind of steady Eddie, just keep on climbing, keep growing, keep making things a little better. And when that happened, our city didn't quite take as much of a beating as you saw on the East and West Coast. But then again, we didn't take that huge appreciation that you see out there as well. So anyway, Overland Park, though, throughout all of that, is one of the local cities that actually fared fairly well through that and did the best out of, it was probably in the top 5 to come through that. So it's still a great place. It was a great place to live and to weather that storm. So that's something that I really feel strongly about. Like, we don't want to, this isn't a video on just sending people to Overland Park, Kansas. I just want to let you guys know as much as I can about information about the different areas, because every family is different. We really want to have that conversation with you, so we know what your goals are and what you're looking for. So we're just trying to put some information out there so you can get do a little bit of research, kind of consolidate it all down into one spot, so you can kind of pick some things that you're most interested in and kind of know about those areas. But really, we don't want to put you in a spot that you don't want to be in. That's not our goal. Our goal is for you to be happy. And we also approach this from a position that we might want to have to sell your house someday, right? So we want to put you in a spot and give you all the information that you need to know so you can make an educated decision, get where you want to be for you and your family, but then also know that in the future that you're protected, you'll be able to sell this property. Property here is, just appreciated. It's just gone up. We did have our little downturn for 4 or 5 years, but then after that, it's just been going up and to the right. So I'm not too concerned. Even with the current economy here, we got rates that are going up. We are still seeing appreciation, so still a great time. We always say, don't wait to buy real estate, buy real estate and wait. And right now, we've got some programs out there we call it getting yesterday's rates. We've got some real creative lenders that we're working with that are able to get yesterday's rates. And some of these sellers, they want to get moving on to their next house, and the days on market are ticking up a little bit, so they're willing to be a little creative to make those things happen. So let's get into number 6. So the 6th pro to be in Overland Park, Kansas is, hey, you're really close to the Chiefs Stadium and the Royals Stadium, or actually we all are. The city's pretty easy to get around in, pretty close everywhere. And we have Patrick Mahomes. Just gonna throw that out there. So that's just kind of a little joke there, but yeah, number 6 is we have Patrick Mahomes. All right, now let's move on to the cons. The cons of living in Overland Park, Kansas, and some of this is going to touch on Kansas City as a whole, but Overland Park, Kansas, it's kind of a sprawling neighborhood, or a sprawling city, and you'll kind of find that Kansas City as a whole. I've lived in other places where that boundary is contained, so people are forced to kind of fill in all the gaps before they'll expand it, but that's not the case here. You can go out and just start a subdivision somewhere, so you'll kind of see that. I think we talked about it in our vlog, in our map video, but as a whole for Overland Park, Kansas, you'll have the older section that starts at the north or at the top of it. And then as time went on, people kept building and moving further away from the city. And that's kind of how it's set up, but there's neighborhoods everywhere. There's not really a perfect rhyme or reason to it. You see a little bit of the grid in the north, but then as you go south, it just, it gets kind of wacky. They have put some really good roads in to get you through, and like we talked about, 69 highway that goes right down the middle. It makes it easy to zoom up like north and south through the city. But that's kind of one of the things that's a con. It just, it doesn't make a lot of sense. All right, con number 2 to living in Overland Park, Kansas, and pretty much kind of the Kansas City area touches on some of this too. It's flat. The topography is just kind of, uninteresting. We don't have any huge mountains that you can see from afar. We don't have any beaches that you can go listen to the waves crash other than, at some of the local lakes, but really just kind of flat. We aren't too far from Colorado if you want to get your mountains. And we talked about that. It's a 9 or a 10 hour drive that way, but we are kind of far. I think you're looking at 14 hours to hit some Texas beaches and 22 hours to get to Florida if you're driving. So what a lot of people will do right here in the Midwest and Kansas City is hop on a plane, right? You're to Mexico in 4 hours sitting on a beach all inclusive. You're to Florida in 3 hours, and pretty much anywhere in the US in about 3.5 hours or less. So it's pretty nice to be centrally located. All right, con number 3. Con number 3 is the weather. And it could be a pro depending on where you're coming from, obviously, but the weather, we have all 4 seasons here and we get them fully. So our summers are hot, our winters can be cold, and our spring and falls can kind of be unpredictable, but in general, they're pretty good, pretty nice mild weather in spring and fall. Summers, you always say it's not the heat, it's the humidity, and that's what we get. There's that Gulf Stream that comes straight up from Texas and brings all that moisture out of the Gulf. And so all summer long, we have winds, the prevailing winds are out of the south, and they bring all that lovely humidity and blow it right up over Kansas City and Overland Park. So our summers are hot and humid. Usually those 90 to 98 degree days are the worst. The humidity will actually keep the temperature down. So the days when it gets over 100, we'll usually have a week or so where it's like 106 or something wild. Those days actually don't feel as bad because it's able to get that hot because the humidity's low. So we have our mix, but that's kind of the extreme. For the most time in the summer, you're in the 90s, 95. And we use that time to spend at lakes and pools and have a good time. There's lots of lakes in the area and boating and all that good stuff. And then as far as the winters go, since we're still talking about the weather, for the most part, the winter, Your average week, you're gonna be like 30 to 40 degrees, right? It's nothing crazy. But we do have our Arctic blasts that they'll call them. I can't remember the name of the last one. They starting to have names. But you'll have this blast of cold air that comes right out of the Arctic, right down from Canada, and it'll sit on us for a week, maybe 2 weeks if the jet stream's running that way. And it brings all that Arctic air down, and it will get below zero. We'll have wind chills. It's not uncommon to have wind chills below 20. So you East Coasters and West Coasters that are used to that ocean effect that kind of keeps your temperatures mild, we don't have that here. We get it all, baby. And it's kind of exciting. I like it. Everybody starts talking about, oh, it's so cold. It's a topic for the next couple weeks, and we're all wrapped up and moaning together. And then it just makes, when that weather breaks, it can go from 20 below wind chill within 2 days, and you're back to 50 degrees, and then we're all high-fiving and laughing, and we're outside in t-shirts. So it is pretty wild, but it makes it kind of fun. It doesn't last long, and I don't know, I think it's kind of exciting. I kind of like the traumatic weather events we have. They're never long-lived, and it's a change. It keeps it interesting. So hot summers, we can have cold winters, but in general, it's not bad. It's not bad at all. And we'll have, as far as snowfall, you'll see average, I'm just kind of shooting from the hip here, but maybe 2 or 3 snows a year that accumulate maybe more than 4 inches. So I think, just judging from me and shoveling my driveway, it's usually 3 times a year, and it'll be snow anywhere from like 2 to 8 inches at the max. You do that a few times a year. Usually by the next day or within 2 days, it's all melted off. It's melted off all the streets, and the roads are back to normal. And really the biggest events, it's not the snow out here or during the day, it's what happens at night. And that's as that snow starts to melt and cars are driving on it. If it's one of those Arctic blasts where it gets really cold at night, the streets will freeze, and we have this thing called black ice. If you're not familiar with that, it's when the road just looks like the road. However, there's a really thin film of ice on there that you can't really see. It's black because it has no oxygen in it. It's just pure like glass. And when you hit that on ice, you have absolutely no control. It doesn't matter how cool you are and how many race cars you've driven. You just lose control, and that can be dangerous. So we have road crews that'll hit all the main streets and all the main subdivisions to make sure everybody has a path out. There is a lot of salt and a lot of sand involved, and they do a really good job of making sure it's safe. There will usually be, if this all happens during the night and they're worried about the roads, because once the sun comes out, pretty much everything melts off within a couple days. So if they're worried about that, there will be some school cancellations. I think nowadays that we just all went through COVID, kids will have, I forget what they call it, but where they can learn from home and they don't have to take a snow day, so they have a computer day. So they usually do a couple of those, but other than that, the weather only, maybe 3 days a year or something that you'll see in the winter. There is extremes and years where nothing happens, but that's probably a pretty good average. You really don't see, we don't have hills. I told you that it's pretty flat around here, so I know when I was living out west, nobody knew how to drive in the snow out west, right? Everybody, like the whole town would shut down if there was a prediction of 2 inches of snow coming, and the grocery store shelves would be, I've never seen anything like it. We just laughed. It was like COVID on toilet paper. But out here, everybody knows it's gone in a couple days. It's pretty flat, so you don't have to drive up mountains and down mountains. So there's not this crazy loss of control. I know when I was out west, everybody that was going in the mountains had chains. I don't really know anybody here that has chains in their car. There will be a few people that put on snow tires and stuff, but for the most part, everybody just gets by. It's flat. You just take your time, you slow down a little bit, and are a little cautious. Or just stay home and work from home. Everybody can do that nowadays, it seems like, too. So that's the pros and cons about the weather. Spring and fall, I guess, go back to that real quick. Spring and fall, really mild weather. The spring will be typically a little bit of rain early, and then it dries out after July. We'll have a kind of a dry season over the summer, and then fall will be beautiful and dry. And then about November to December, it'll start raining again, mixing in rain once a week, and then eventually turn to snow. Our coldest months are January and February, and then after that, you can have your fall. It's the Midwest, right? So we get a blast from the north, a blast from the south, east and west, but it doesn't really last very long. It's just for a few days, and then we're kind of back to the normal weather pattern again. So overall, pretty mild, but it is exciting. Our thunderstorms are amazing, by the way. In the spring, we get great, fantastic lightning shows. So it's exciting. Sometimes I'll sit with my wife, we'll grab a glass of wine, sit on the back porch, and just watch the show. It's pretty amazing. I know when I was living out west, we did not have any thunderstorms. So we tell some of the people about the great shows we had, and they're just like, yeah. Anyway, it's pretty cool. And I guess it could be dangerous if you're standing out in the field, but if you're in a house and grounded, shouldn't be that big a deal. And I guess while we're on weather, sorry to drag this out, but everybody likes talking about the weather, right? There's several country songs written about that. We have hail here in Overland Park in Kansas City. We have tornadoes, and then, like I said, the thunderstorms. So the hail will do property damage out here. We see that in the spring, we see it in the fall. You can even see it in the middle of the summer. It's kind of wacky when it comes up. And I'd say we probably have, on average, maybe 3 or 4 hailstorms a year. And they're gonna be in pockets, so it's not like it just hits the whole city. It'll just be like a cloud floating over and hits a couple spots. The hail not always will do property damage, but usually when it gets about the size of a quarter to a $50 is when it'll start to do property damage, and it will destroy your car or paint job, and it can take out the roof. So there's kind of a saying here in the Midwest is nobody ever pays for a roof. And that's partly true because there's so many hailstorms that come through, and they will do damage to your typical composition shingle, and then the insurance agent will come out and the adjuster, and they'll say, yeah, it's a full replacement, and people get new roofs. So that's most of the time people are gonna be getting new roofs out here in the metro area. Also, tornadoes, right? If you've never been in the Midwest and you're looking to move here, you probably have heard a lot about tornadoes. And we do have tornadoes. I've had I live in the Northland. We've had one pretty close here. There's been some out in Kansas. But compared to some neighborhoods like in the South that don't have basements, now not every house in Overland Park, Kansas and Kansas City is gonna have a basement, but for the most part, they do. And that's where you go, right? You get down, you get below grade, underground, and you get to the center of the building, and you just ride it out. You take your phone or your radio or whatever, and you listen, and this tornado, they have a really good idea where it's at. They track them. They'll tell you about the county and your zip code and whatever, and tell you to stay down in the basement till whatever, and then after it's passed, they'll say it's safe and you can come back out. So there's a really good alert system. There is sirens that are close to all the major metropolitan areas. So when a tornado is close, even if you don't have your phone, you're not listening to the radio or whatever, you will be notified because you'll hear these sirens going off like a war's about to happen. And those are all put in place just to make sure everybody's safe. So you get down to your basement, anything could happen, but for the most part, people that have gone down there that have had a direct hit, personally don't know anybody, and I don't know how many deaths we've had, but it doesn't really make the news a whole lot other than just the sight of the thing going through and the property damage, but it can happen. And it's just something to be aware of. As far as insurance, I think all your homeowners insurance in this area is gonna automatically cover that. It's gonna cover hail, it's gonna cover those major events. Something that they won't tell you about is earthquake insurance, right? Whoever thought of earthquakes in the Midwest? There is a fault line that runs, it's pretty far south. I think it might be all the way down into Arkansas below us, but I guess it's possible that thing could break loose and rattle some teeth up here in the Kansas City metro area. So I personally don't have earthquake insurance, but I know it was a thing back when I don't know, maybe been 10 years ago that it shook a little bit and somebody felt it in Kansas City. And then people probably just started pushing earthquake insurance. But if you are one of those people that likes to dot all your I's and cross every single T, then maybe that's something you need to look into, but I'm not pushing. All right, I think I've touched on the weather enough. Let's go to taxes. Taxes are number 4 on my con list, and that's because you pay a little more to live in Overland Park, Kansas. And I think we kind of touched on that in the beginning. Why is a lot of that money's going to your A+ school district. There's a lot of amenities. The roads are a little better. I talked about how brutal the weather is, right? And when you have those freeze-thaw cycles like that, moisture gets into the road, and then at night, if it's 20 below, it freezes, water expands, and it pops. And so a little hole in the road by the end of the winter season can turn into a huge pothole, and then they've got to go back every year and patch those up. So Kansas City, we are known for our potholes, and Overland Park spends a little more money than Kansas City because they have a little more tax revenue to keep the roads looking good and keep them smooth and keep everything looking nice and efficient. So you pay a little more for taxes, no doubt. The tax rate for sales tax in Overland Park is 9.1. I think Kansas City has, I don't know exactly, 6.5% tax. And then Johnson County has a 1.5, and then there's another like 1.5 or something that Overland Park puts on it too. It gets you up to about a 9.1% sales tax for anything that you buy right there in Johnson County. Now you are close, you can step right outside to the Target over in Lenexa and maybe avoid that or go the other direction or even drive up to Missouri. But that's just something that is good to know. And then your property taxes, they're a little higher too, but 1.2% of the assessed value is kind of the average in Overland Park, so it's not an extreme thing that you really need to worry about. But the house prices are a little more, and it does cost a little more to live there. And those are just some of the reasons. You have a little more amenities, you have a little nicer area, everything's set up really good so you don't have to leave it. And the school districts are A+, so a great spot to raise family. I think, as I told you, the median age is my age with a couple kids in school and in a less than a $500,000 house. So that's kind of what you expect. All right, well, that really concludes my pros and cons list. I'm sure there's more and we could talk about it for hours. And if you want more information, feel free to pick up the phone and give us a buzz or shoot us a text, give us a call, schedule a Zoom, all that good stuff. We have been, like I mentioned at the beginning, I've been in the real estate business here, born and raised in Kansas City for over 20 years. We got my business partner, Max, and the team of I have been helping over 200 people a year move within the Kansas City area and take care of them. So we kind of consider them family once they work with us. So we have everything in place to make sure that you have a smooth move from when you hit the tarmac here in Kansas City, whether you're flying in or driving in, to get you guys taken care of. We've got some Airbnbs that we own between my partner and I, so we've even put people into those when we've had to when they're traveling in and need a place to go. So we will take care of you. We've got over 600 reviews on Google that are worth checking out if you want to know a little bit about how we operate on the real estate side. But really, we are just here to give information to kind of help you make your decision. We'd love to see comments or questions, or if you live in Overland Park and you want to add to the pros and cons list, feel free to throw it right in there. Appreciate everybody's feedback and would love to hear from you. Thanks for watching. And don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell, all that good stuff, so you guys can be the first to know of the next video and stay up to date on what's happening here in the Kansas City market. So you're the first to know. All right, thanks for watching.